So I'm going to talk about the Indigenous Film Festival that we are organizing. It's going to be the first. I'm so excited about this as well. It's the week before COP26 in London, and it's the first Brazil Indigenous Film Festival in the UK.
Yes!
Yes! Please come, please come, please come. Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm definitely going. Definitely.
Please. Yeah. And it's taking place at the ICA, the Institute of Contemporary Art.
Which is,
Do you know where it is?
I don't know if I've been there.
It's at the mall, in the mall. It's very close to the Queen.
Oh my God, yeah. Because the Queen is a massive fan of contemporary art. I know, like
exactly. Yeah.
And indigenous people.
And she's a fan of indigenous people too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
There are beautiful photos of meeting indigenous people, straight.
Holding her up on their shoulders.
Exactly.
Like that kind of thing.
Lovely stuff. Yeah. So we're gonna be there.
Yeah.
We're gonna be there.
With the Queen.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's gonna take place at the ICA, as I said.
Yeah.
It's 3 days of festival, 22nd of October to the 24th. So it's Friday to Sunday. The ICA gave us prime time to showcase these films. It's going to be really exciting because we worked with Tacoma to curate a program of 12 films. They are varied. There are short films, animations, documentaries, feature films. There's a range of formats and styles. And what is very special is that all of them are directed by indigenous filmmakers from Brazil. So, and I want to say that because it is most of the indigenous films that get to the big screen or to big festivals or even to Netflix, they are directed or co-directed by non-indigenous filmmakers. It's like, and these are not the films we were Tacoma was very keen in making sure that the films that he wanted to bring to this festival were that this festival was a platform he wanted it to be a platform for indigenous directors. So all of the films, so there are 12 films from 7 different communities, 7 different indigenous peoples from across Brazil, and it's all about their agency, about the power of representing themselves through the cinema, of telling stories and their experiences of what they are living locally in their territory or their visions of future or the rituals. So there's everything there. And I think it's really exciting that we have this opportunity to do that at the ICA, such a big, important institution to the cultural scene in the UK. In the week before COP26, it's incredible to have that opportunity to be able to invite people to come and to see different perspectives, different realities. There will be events there on those 3 days at the same time, and the films will also be available online for people to watch on demand. And part of the box office will be donated to the Articulation of Indigenous People in Brazil, which is the biggest organization led by and run by indigenous people. So it's going to be really exciting, yeah. Amazing. And hopefully there will be other festivals like this happening as well that we can do other years. So make sure you come. Let's make this a success. So we can have more and more and more. 22nd to the 24th October.
Amazing. Yes.
3 days at the ICA. Yes, I'll send you the link. I'll put the link here. Swipe up.
Swipe up. Link in bio. Like and subscribe.
And get your ticket. Yeah. So please come. I think it's going to be really exciting. And what I want to say again, just because it's the importance of filmmaking for these communities. It's like filmmaking became a very common practice in indigenous communities in Brazil. They are using the cameras, the mobile phones, their social media as weapons of resistance, of fighting the invisibility that the government keeps trying to throw upon them. So it's really important that we watch that we give this visibility, that we share, that we talk about, that we understand, because it is fight for their survival. It's part of the fight for the survival, and I think it's a gift for all of us to be able to know a bit more about those stories that they're bringing. Yeah, because they are allowing us. I think that is, they are allowing us to get into their lives as well. They're choosing what they want us to know about themselves, about their culture, about their families, about their stories, about their their beliefs. So I think it's super special.
It's from I guess it's, for once, it's something not through the, I don't know, I'm making up a word here, non-Indigenous gaze or whatever, like.
Right. The imperial gaze or something.
The imperial gaze, the white savior gaze, the help, just basically people kind of being helpful basically when it's maybe not the best thing. How do you think, you obviously think it's important for things that benefit Indigenous communities to be Indigenous led. How do you think that differs from, when well-meaning people from the city come, or from well-meaning activists from like Europe come over and take pictures and things like that? And also, just even if they're very, very well-informed, how does it differ? Like, what is that vital ingredient that comes from things being Indigenous led and us supporting them in what they want and them taking a leadership role?
That is a difficult question, and I will answer that question from my personal experience. It's not a right or wrong answer, I think. I think, and I also think that it's so difficult, because if every time there's a imbalance in power dynamics, there is discomfort. There is room for judgment. And so I honestly, everything that we are doing right now is the practices that we are developing in Kakumão, of being, for example, Indigenous led, and the work being participatory, of co-creating the ideas with the community, of trying to answer those desires, or listening to the community and using our work as a platform to make those desires. Everything might be down the line seen in a different perspective from what I'm seeing right now, or that we are seeing right now. I don't think that sometimes work that was done in the past, that nowadays we see with a very critical eye, was seen or perceived. I think it's the front. I think we are constantly evolving and changing the frontier of practices. So I think what is important is for us to be pushing those boundaries, pushing those edges, and being there and listening to the design and seeing what the communities want. And I think that is the best practice. There's no right or wrong. There's lots of wrongs, but what is the right thing to do? I think the right thing to do is Indigenous led. I think that's the point, is trying to give power away. I think that is, give power away and be at the service of the community. And it's not about what you believe is the best. And things change all the time. The challenges are different all the time. When we started doing this work with the group, when we met Kakumão in 2014, Brazil, the world, the challenges were different from what they are nowadays in this.
So you were talking about the evolving conversation, how it has to be an evolving conversation. And you were saying that in the beginning, when you started working with Takuma to now.
Yeah, so just going back because of the sound issues that we had, I think that the challenges, the desires, and the threats were very different. And I think that what is important is to develop a solid partnership with the community. And I'm saying this about not just about Indigenous people, and I'm saying about, because through my work, I think I didn't say in the beginning, so I work in an arts organization, which is an arts research center at Mary University called People's Policy Projects. Check this out. And,
People's Palace Projects. People Palace Projects?
People's Policy Projects, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we work with various communities and arts organizations in, you know, in vulnerable situations, and trying to overcome some development issues that are that they are facing. And we try to investigate how arts and research can be together a tool to support those communities to overcome those challenges. Yeah, so I think it's not just about indigenous communities, but it's about the imbalance of power in everything. And I think the key for the work is about developing a solid relationship in which you build trust, in which there's room for experiment and for mistakes as well, that you're able to respond to moments of crisis, that you can advocate for the cause. There are so many things, but I think the center is the collaboration, is trying to be as equitable and as possible, you know, like if you're producing a material, and it goes in every single level, if you're producing material, producing both languages, you know, and it's something simple, but it's something necessary, you know, anytime that is possible, bringing them to talk with you or on and share that, you know, there are so many things that I think people can do, that instead of speaking on their behalf, but speaking with them while they speaking and you are there with them, you know. I think that is, you know, I don't know, it's a question, and I think there will be, you know, I think down the line I will look back at lots of things that we are doing and I'll question some decisions or some, I think, and I'll be very happy to do that. I think that is the most important thing, because if I do question, it means that I'm evolving together with the practice. If I'm always comfortable with everything that we have done in the past, you know.
So that does bring us to the question of, is there something you can point to in the past that you're like, well, I shouldn't have taken that approach, or any sort of learning mistakes that you can think of?
Lots of things that happened. I think that, what can I say, so for example, when we were doing the residencies, for example, invited artists from different art forms, and there were some art forms that we thought from our experience outside the community that this is really participatory, this is going to really work, this is going to be, and when we arrived there, it didn't match, you know, like and you think of, okay, I could have done that differently, or maybe that practitioner, that artist is not is not fitting all those boxes, or it's not in the headspace to actually be here doing that work. And there are lots of things that were surprise, you know, everything was a surprise. I think it's about being responsive to the surprises as well, because I was in an environment, it was my first time as well, so I was producing, being responsible for 10 people, translating different languages,
oh my gosh,
discovering, trying to get my head around things, you know, and I was producing the artwork and the food and the transportation and the well-being of everyone, and the ethical agreements with the community. Everything was, you know, there are so many things, and sometimes you have to, oh my God, how do I deal with that situation? How, you know, and then there are things that you discover that don't go, you know, like, for example, I remember that, and it was one thing that it was on our first trip, that, for example, we did not, you know, the community, they have their traditional ways of eating. So they fish, they eat cassava, they plant and harvest cassava, and the basic, you know, nutrition of the village comes from that. And then when we were going, we organized to bring other things that we are used, because as a producer, I didn't want our team to actually as well maybe feel uncomfortable all the time with the food. You're spending 15 days eating a food that you're not used to eat. It will affect the way that you're going to deliver your work as well. So I have to think in this two sort of systems, you know, like we have to integrate, but at the same time I need to, so I was like, okay, rations or rice, things that we use, rice, beans, proteins, a little bit of sugar, coffee, and I was taking those things in the community, not to the community, but for ourselves, for us to eat, and we were cooking there together with them. But of course, those people would come and have a coffee with us, eat with us, let's sit together in the table and eat. So there were those moments, and then later I was talking to the indigenous nurse in the village, and he was telling me that, like, please don't give sugar. Like,
yeah, because they don't have dentists, right?
They do. Well,
They
yeah.
do.
Oh, yeah. Like the provision, they have nurses. They have nurse. They have, there is a Brazil has a good national health system there.
Oh, that's good.
Which has,
I was just thinking of my dad's village, because they introduced sugar before they introduced dentists, and that just ruined everybody.
Exactly. So, for example, this is something that, where is the line there of being, there's so many lines. There's so many things that I look in retrospective. Thiago, you should have thought about that, or but it's about the discovery. It's about and they were telling me, like, you actually don't know, but people here go a lot to the city. They drink lots of soft drinks, and it has increased the cases. Now we have diabetes in the community. We have children with disease. There are so many other, there's people with high blood pressure, and they were coming to drink coffee with us. They were coming. So there are lots of things to navigate. So one of the things that we discovered as well, when I was talking about previously about the art form, drama, theater is not something that the community wants. There is a barrier of representing something else, that the theater brings. I am representing, that for them is not something that they want. They don't want the community to act on another character.
I've heard of this. I've heard of something like this. And so there's in some indigenous cultures, there's a real aversion to abstract concepts.
Yeah.
So they like a lot of what they can see in their or feel or hear in their direct experience.
Yeah.
Or so, was it something like that? Or
I don't know. I'm not gonna enter into because I'm not a theater.
Right, you can't say why.
I'm not an anthropologist. Exactly. I don't have the answer to it. And this is something as well, Wei, that I think it's important. I'm not an anthropologist. Our work is not about anthropology. It's not. It is anthropology, but it's not. Nobody's claiming to be anthropologists or anything.
You're not studying them.
No, it's not about that. It's about how artistic practices can support an indigenous group of people to develop, to socially, economically, politically, culturally develop in the terms of what they want to do. We are responding to the needs of an indigenous artist. He's a filmmaker from the community. He has his practice, and he's like, I do this work with this camera. What can I do if I want to do 3D? How can I do that? If I want to learn, and then we bring people, and then we try to create the space in which they can best work together, collaborate, and immerse themselves, so they can. It's about creating the atmosphere for those agents to meet and create a solid connection, and then whatever comes afterwards is a result, is an outcome, it's an output, it's whatever, it is that.
Yes, and I think so much of the material that we consume and I consume around indigenous cultures is from an anthropological point of view, and that's so objectifying. Like it's
sometimes it's incredible, sometimes it's problematic.
I do think it's an evolving conversation, and it's hard to be 100% right. I mean, what you're saying is so fascinating to me, and so I relate to it. Not like as an indigenous person, but as in a way of like, I mean, I think recently we've had a lot of conversations like this, me and my friends, about racism or about, experience, who gets to own their experience. But it just so strikes me that because a lot of us are brought up in the same brainwashed way, or like Western propaganda, Western narratives, a lot of people find it very hard to understand that someone else from a different culture, a different country could have such a completely different experience that you can't even, like you're saying, you can't even anticipate. You can't even anticipate what the miscommunications or problems that are going to arise are, because, obviously, you don't have their experience. So how were you to know that theater would, transgress something culturally for them?
Exactly.
That's so important. And you only know by doing, because otherwise how would you discover that?
Exactly. And and sometimes it's not a decision that comes from the whole community. The drama, for example, comes from the leader of the community. When we said, no, I don't want it. And you don't question, okay,
right, yeah.
Yes, so we are not going to do it. What else can we do? Okay, and it's like that, it is how we are going to navigate, you're a guest in someone else's house, you're not, So there are those things that we rethink and we could have done differently. But at the same time, I wouldn't have done it differently because it led into a different direction. It was important for us to rethink that way. And, and I think it's evolving work as well. So there will be things that we're going to look back retrospectively and say like, oh, that is not how we would be doing right now. And I want to arrive at that point. I think it's important that we get there. And
So one of the things that we'd mentioned before, I think with your documentary, would you even call it a documentary when it's like an ever evolving immersive piece of art? I mean, what would you call it actually?
I call it a visual installation.
Visual installation.
What I call it is an installation. Yeah,
it's a visual installation.
It's those abstract words that you create to justify
Oh, honey, it's a concept, it's an idea, but it's not. It's undefinable. Oh, you cannot put it in a box.
It's a concept. It's a destination. No.
It's
like
I think
it's to describe it is to undescribe it at the same time.
It's a video. It's a video installation as it is right now because it's a video with documentary images, with images, animation, quotes, an incredible soundscape. There are some panels, informative panels on the side. There is a poster which you have a parallel between the definition of what museums are and what indigenous territories are in relation to each other. So there are lots of different small things so that's why it's
and so I totally now understand if you're like, okay, put it on YouTube, that's not the same at all. But this does bring us to the thing of like, okay, so this is a podcast even, so podcast / YouTube. But granted, if someone's just listening to this, the only part that we could really probably explore with this video installation, multimedia immersion, is the soundscape.
Yeah.
And so could you speak a little bit more about your work with soundscape artists, or how important was that aspect in your work?
Totally. So there is one artist that we invited to go on the first residency called Nathan Robin Man. He's incredible. He should be called Jesus, not myself. And he's the sweetest man. And he is an oral artist, British, and he works for this company, this foundation that we invited for the first trip called Factum Foundation. I'm going to talk about Factum when I speak about the fourth project. I'm just going to answer the something because I think
spoiler alert,
very special place in this conversation. Yeah, but Nathan is an oral artist from there that creates, he's incredible. And he arrives there with ambisonic sound record equipment. And because Takuma told him when he met him before he went to the village, he said, I'm a filmmaker, but I do my soundscapes. I don't do soundscapes. I record with my camera. So I do films with the sound of my camera. So Nathan said, brilliant. I'm going to bring what I'm going to offer is I'm going to bring microphones that we can put under the earth under the water, that we can fly with kite, you know, and can capture sound 360 degrees. So Nathan just arrived there with that technology for Tacumã, and they spent these 15 days recording sounds of the village in 360 degrees, that Tacumã, to create a library. So Tacumã can use those recordings when he does his films. So that's why I say, like, when an artist, it's a great example of an artist that has access to a technology and expertise to technology that Tacumã didn't have, to serve Tacumã's intention as an artist, his desire, and he's putting his expertise at the service of Tacumã and the community. So they spend these 15 days in the community, waking up. I remember we used to wake up like 3 in the morning when the first star rises, because it's the moment that people used to go bathing in the past, and we would travel to the river and put the microphone under the water, one microphone in the tree, to record the dawn. The dusk, to record the sound of the generator, the dogs barking, you know, and he was creating this incredible sound, a sound library. Actually, it's a library of sounds, of everything that they could record during those, and rituals, of course, and people singing. This is an example of a very successful collaboration, and it was so successful that later Nathan got a grant from the British Council to do a residency in another indigenous community in the Xingu, because of the work that he had done before with his portfolio. So he was selected to go to another indigenous community, and he recorded an album of traditional songs sang by the singer of this community, the Wauja. There is a CD. It's on BBC Sounds. It's just incredible, you know.
Amazing.
Like it's incredible. You have to listen to that. Yeah. And so the installation, we mixed some of those sound recordings that Nathan did with some other recordings that Tacumã had of people using their, you know, singing, dancing. So there are lots of layers there. There's the sound of the fires, and you know, from the recording of the you know, of the fires, you know, with his mobile camera. So there are lots of layers of sounds. It's really beautiful. The sound is something that I think has this power of transporting you to a different place, you know. And yeah, and as you know, it's not something that you would experience well in your phone or on,
right,
you know. Yeah,
it really does. I think I remember we're talking about the Horniman Museum.
The Horniman as well. The Horniman was that soundscape, that similar soundscape. Yeah. So when we did the installation at the Horniman, before you go to the room where the central installation was, an indigenous artist singer, he would walk with you through the corridors. The corridors were all dark. You couldn't see anything. There was just, you know, some green light on top to guide you through. And he would walk and sing. And there was a sound of the forest. So it like you would take like 3 minutes until you get into the installation. You arrive in the installation in a different mindset of what you arrived, and you were led by an indigenous artist, you know, dressed in traditional costume, you know, singing, inviting you, and it takes you into a little journey, and then you're somehow ready to experience something else when you get on the other side of the journey.
It really is different. It's not just obviously the sound that comes when you record a video or the sound that comes when you use your phone. It's a very, very immersive sound, and it really reminded me of like where me and Ileana's parents are from, which is Borneo. Especially the forest stuff is just I mean, it changes the air. The sound changes the air and changes kind of the feeling and the vibrations around you, and it was very, very evocative. And I mean, I presume that the equipment being used there is just space age or something like that. Yeah.
Nathan, you know, he did a documentary about whales.
Yeah.
You know, so he took a microphone that he used in that documentary, like that he put, I don't know how deep in the sea to record the whales communicating. So he took that microphone to the Xingu, where we put under the soil, people, you know, hitting their foot on soil, and it was, you could listen to the, you know, to people stepping in the ground from underneath. Crazy. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
that
it is.
does, like Wei talking about Sarawak sounds. It's kind of funny because the sounds in the rainforest are something that I think a lot of our natives use to make fun of foreign town people coming in, and you know, like, because it's always like, oh, that's a ghost, you know, like when it's actually a bird, or it's just one of those things
Yeah,
that,
I do
you know
remember.
what I mean? There's a bird
like
that sounds like a piano in Sarawak, I think, and so that's like one of their, like, they use it to make fun of us, I guess, when we go into the jungle. So it is so evocative, you know, and probably where a lot of our horror stories come from is the sound of the rainforest.
Lots of ghost stories.
Yes, ghost stories. And now I think the fourth project. Are you ready to talk about that?
But who's counting? I mean,
well, I lost count.
I have to count all of them. And the last one is a project that started. It's an ongoing project, this one, and it's with the team of Factum, where the team that Nathan works with. And Factum is one of the leading digital conservation organizations in the world. God, they are incredible, and they are based in Madrid. They have this incredible workshop. It's led by a British artist called Adam Lowe, which is one of the most you know, inspiring men I've ever met. So they do incredible work documenting, using 3D technology to document heritage at risk. So they do work in Africa, they work in Middle East. They create perfect replicas of objects that are at danger, or so, for example, they have one of the biggest projects is the Tutankhamun tombs. So they documented when they discovered the tomb or the tomb.
Tomb.
Sorry.
Tutankhamun tomb. Shingu Kuikuro.
Yeah. So Tutankhamun's tomb, so they recreated, they documented, they scanned to such details that they were able to do research about the tombs and archaeological discoveries on the tomb without actually having to go to the tomb that creates a risk of destroying, you know, the present.
Yeah.
So they create the perfect replica and digital you know, documentation and datification of objects or whatever you want to do to that precision degree that you can't say what is real, what is not real. It's incredible. It's like,
But to clarify, this is 3D scanners.
3D scanners, photogrammetry. They have various technologies. So it's 3D photogrammetry, whatever. I don't know. I'm not. This is also, I'm not a technologist there. But there's oral, there's the sound design. And they work with some of the most incredible artists. So lots of work that you don't know. Oh my God, how does these artists create this sculpture? It's done by them. So artists like Anish Kapoor, Marina Abramovic, Grayson Perry, they create the work. So these artists they are the artisans, of these work. They are a dream factory. That's how I say, oh my God, this is it. Whatever you say you want to do, it's possible to do with them. They have the best team of modern artisans, I think, in the world. And they have the commercial side of the work that helps funding the foundation side of the work. And then they do work in different countries. They approach it, well, we were introduced to them because they never had any work with South America. And then everything came into place. We met Takuma, the idea of the residency, their availability and their interest in forging new connections with South. So we invited them to go to the Xingu on our first visit. And our first visit was with them, with Adam, who is the director, and 3 digital specialists from Factor, which Nathan, the sound artist, was as well. Okay, I'm just talking a lot about them because I think we have to give proper credit, of the incredible. In one of while we were there in the Xingu, the community told us about a cave, which is the Cave of Kamukuwaká, which is a sacred heritage site for them. It's this beautiful cave that is thousands of years old, that has these thousands of years old engravings that are the source of their traditional design, body painting, pottery, basketry. It's the cave that, according to their cosmology, is the house of the first man created by the sun. The first man lived there. And there's a whole story about how the sun, I don't want to say the story wrong here, because there's so many details, but it was the first house, and I think the sun got jealous of men and transforms it into a rock to trap the man that was living in that house.
Oh my God.
Cool. And the first men start drawing in the walls, and these are the knowledges and the drawings. It's so incredible. And these are, and that's almost a book of learning of the community, because the story, it's Adam and Eve, it's written in that stone for those communities. And the cave, the problem is, the cave, there are lots of problems. But first, the thing is, the cave, when the Xingu territory was demarcated in 1961 by the Brazilian government, there was, of course, a dispute on what's territory, what's the size of the territory, where does the land start, where the land finishes, and the cave was left outside the borders of the Xingu. Yeah. So
is it the most important artifact within the Xingu culture?
I can't say that.
Yeah.
I can say that it is the most sacred site for some of those communities. For one community specifically, yes, yeah. Wow. And these communities used to travel yearly with their young kids to the cave and go there, camp, and learn, read the drawings, hear the story. So it's a cave that is so important for the formation of the culture of the community. But with time, of course, there is the advance of the agricultural frontier, and the cave was surrounded by farms. The cave was not listed. The territory was not protected. It was outside the territory. And it created lots of tensions between indigenous communities and the local farmers. Them coming there every year, they saying the disputes of the territory and all of that. So we knew it was a heritage site that was at risk. They told us this story. We never heard of the cave before. So they told us about it. And then we thought, okay, if we organize another visit with Factum, we bring them back with the appropriate material so we can do the scanning of the cave. So it's going to be safeguarded digitally, that work. And that can also be an incredible support on the community's pledge of having that sacred site listed, because we wanted to have that site listed, having a team of one of the most important digital artisans in the world coming here to document that cave. We're going to go to the press, and that is supporting, creating documentation to get that site listed. So we organized a trip to go 6 months later. We got, fundraised, organized everything, got everyone on board, and then we traveled to the community. When we got there, we found the cave already vandalized. So, yeah, someone, we don't know who, hacked and destroyed all of the drawings from the cave. So they desecrated, they vandalized, and they removed, for the community, meant that they removed the sacrality of the cave. The cave is not a sacred site anymore. And it was one of the saddest days ever. And it happened it's interesting. It happened 1 week after the National Museum, Brazil National Museum, caught fire, and that we lost thousands and thousands and thousands of years of civilization.
My gosh,
of languages, of cultures, of artifacts, it was so sad. So when the team was there, we filmed, and they did the recording of the cave vandalized. They documented, they did the scanning of everything that was as we found it, and they went back to Madrid, and they worked for a year with the community remotely on Zooms, like we are doing now, combining the digital scans that they did, photos, and they were asking the communities with the photos to redraw everything that was written there. It was an extensive work of archaeology with an incredible team of anthropologists, archaeologists, all volunteers working in this mix to redo those drawings, those maps, those stories, and they managed to produce digital and physical, a replica, an accurate replica of the original cave at the scale of 1:1. So, and imagine, this cave is 8 meters by 4 by 4. It's a massive structure, and they managed to recreate both digitally. So it's all in 3D data, but also physically, the cave, the most important panel, the main face of the cave with the engravings. And so we inaugurated that replica of the cave in Madrid in 2019, just before COVID, before the pandemic. We invited leaders from the community to come to Madrid. We did a big celebration, inaugurating the cave, and it was really fantastic to see their experience meeting the cave again. Is it accurate? Is it correct? It is what, and it was so special, so emotional, and so incredible to see how, COVID happened, so we couldn't take the cave back, the replica of the cave back to the community. We will be fundraising when we can. So if anyone listening to this podcast can,
link in bio, wherever the link is in the bio.
It is expensive.
Swipe up.
Yeah, we have to fundraise a good amount of money to actually take this massive 8 meters by 4 by 4 cave with the people who mounted it, travel with all of this to the middle of the Xingu, build a structure for it not to be destroyed. So it's a massive project on itself. And we have to find, ways of making it happen. So if anyone has any ideas of organizations, foundations that would be interested in supporting that work, or private donors, that very welcome. Yeah, because we want to take the cave back to the community, so they can carry on learning. So it's such an important aspect of the culture that people try to kill, but it's not dead. It's there. It's alive, and we can. It's something that we can do. We can make something out of it. So it's there. And what we are doing at the moment, because of COVID and because it's been now 2 years since the community can travel to the cave to carry on learning about their culture, we got a grant from the British Council, from the Digital Collaboration Fund, and we are developing a virtual reality interface to the cave, so that the schools and the kids that are in the school, in the community, they can. And it's something that it's very cool for them, because they are so interested in the technology and experiencing VR and all of that. So we are combining, the experiencing of meeting the cave and learning about the cave with the VR experience interface. So we are developing that. We are in the process of developing that, so that they can have that experience while we can't take the replica of the cave, and it's safe. It's safe in a digital environment for future generations. So that knowledge, that the act of passing the knowledge to the future generations is not lost. And it's fantastic as well, because with this grant has allowed us not only to develop the VR experience, but with if you are doing the VR experience, you have to give all the means for the community to actually experience the VR experience. So with that money, we are able to install solar panels to 6 other villages and 2 communities that did not have power energy. So we are it's about 600 people that will be served, not only with the VR experience, which is one aspect of it, but people have free green energy in their houses, in schools, computers. So it's another layer of importance for them, which I think is really important. Yeah. So hopefully that will be ready by March next year.
What's the name of the project? Sorry.
The name of the cave is the Sacred Cave of Kamukuwaká. So we have a publication, a free publication about the cave, about the process of finding the cave vandalized, the whole process of reconstructing it, rebuilding it, until the launch. And there's the stories about the cave, there are drawings from the community, from children, about the myths behind the cave. So it's all sort of documented in that book. You can download it, it's for free. I'll send you the link to it as well.
Can you talk a little bit, you sort of like brushed upon the forest fires and how it might be attributed to getting worse because of the Bolsonaro government. I think if you could like talk about that a little bit, and also whether or not, like you were saying, that these things are the weapons of these indigenous people, etc. But like, can you speak a little bit more about what the weapons are against? How does it actually translate into the policies, or or the relationships that were between like capitalism, say, and environmentalism, or wherever it brings you?
That is big. Where can I start? Shall I say that? Yeah. So Bolsonaro, since he got elected, his administration is doing everything they can in their power to undermine and deregulate the environmental policies and indigenous rights in the country. And he got COVID, the COVID pandemic happened during that period of time, and it was so I even took advantage of that to push further, to change the public agenda and hide the further deregulation. He manipulated the public agenda with the pandemic to further deregulate the environmental policies and the indigenous rights in the country. And so I think it's important when I think about COVID, I'm talking about COVID because it's something that is very recent, and it's something that is a major threat to the survival of those communities. But there are intersections between COVID and the land invasions for agriculture, illegal mining, deforestation, criminal fires, persecution, racism, and so on, and so on, and so on. And
can you talk about how he did that?
Yeah. I think it's part of his governmental platform one of them is to develop the Amazon for it.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, it's the economic development of the Amazon. So there's
what kind of land do they turn it into? Like soybeans?
Soybeans,
Yeah.
cattle ranching, land grabbing,
yeah,
oil exploitation, construction of roads, dams, railways, everything. And he's a tragedy.
Yeah.
Cancer. Bolsonaro is a cancer.
It's criminal. Yeah.
And he. So since he got into power, deforestation has hit a high in Brazil. There was an increase of 10% from the previous year. There's this number which I find it very useful. There's 3 football fields lost every minute. Every minute. So let's see how long will this podcast be in the end.
Oh my God.
How many football fields will have been lost just while we.
Oh my God.
And the deforestation of the Amazon itself, of course, it's a long process. It doesn't happen just with Bolsonaro, but Brazil was on a way of decreasing that deforestation. So it went up again. And the problem is that we have 20% of the total tree forest is gone of the Amazon. And what scientists say is that if there's a 5% more of loss, once we get to the 25% of the forest cover, the Amazon cannot restore itself anymore as a biome. So we are going to be it's the tipping point for the survival of the Amazon, and from there the Amazon will be it's an irreversible transition to a savanna ecosystem, and we're getting very close to this tipping point. And it was very shocking that 2 months ago the Amazon is the biggest remaining tropical forest in the world, and it plays an essential role in the cycle of the carbon, in the cycle of the water, and it was a great ally, like together with the oceans, the forests and the oceans, the best allies in fighting climate crisis. And 2 months ago, scientists, it was everywhere. I don't know if you saw it. It was headlines in the Guardian, New York Times, everywhere. They warned that it was the first time since they started measuring that the Amazon stopped being a carbon sink, and it was releasing more carbon dioxide to the atmosphere than it's able to absorb. Yeah, it's so urgent, and what Bolsonaro is trying to pass bills to downsize and to revoke protected areas in the Amazon and indigenous lands. He's trying to grant amnesty to land grabbers. He is actively persecuting indigenous and environmental activists. He is promoting anti-indigenous and anti-environmental rhetoric in the country. It is really urgent. It's really serious. And it's crazy because I don't have the numbers from last year, but in 2019, there were 24 killings of land and environmental defenders in Brazil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
90% of those killings were in the Amazon. It were indigenous communities that
Mm-hmm.
of course protect their land, people from the Brigade of the Guardians of the Forest, which was an indigenous group trying to protect those, their territories. And it is very serious, the situation. It's very problematic and it's difficult. What else can I say about Bolsonaro?
I mean, the killings of environmentalists is just like, it rings so close to home as well. Like, I hate to keep bringing this back to like Borneo and things like that. But yeah, pretty much exactly the same thing happened. Like you get people just disappearing and
exactly
dead. Yeah.
And the thing is, what's happening within the indigenous is the trying to revoke the rights of those lands where they are living and they are protecting. It's proven, it's scientifically proven. There's lots of research showing that territories that have that in which indigenous people have been granted full property rights,
Mm-hmm.
have deforestation rates 2-3 times lower than areas that are just outside. That's part of my argumentation on the exhibition in Glasgow, is that like they are working to protect their lifestyle. They're not working because it sounds utilitarian. It's not
Mm-hmm.
utilitarian. It's that their lifestyle, their traditional lifestyle,
Mm-hmm.
is so important in the fight to the climate crisis that if we do not actually engage with those communities, if we do not support the work and try to protect and support their claim to the right, deforestation will increase, and we are going to go into a cycle that we are already in a cycle that I don't think we can get out. But there is so much that we can do and we have to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And protecting or supporting indigenous communities is the best way, or one of the best ways, to support the ecosystem in general, because they are the best defenders of the ecosystem.
Yeah, and you're talking about Borneo, and if you think about indigeneity globally, there is this data from the UN that it's like indigenous peoples are 5% of the population. They occupy 20% of the land in the world, and 20% of the land, and that in that 20% of the land, there is 80% of the remaining biodiversity in the whole world. So it's 5% of the population safeguarding 80% of the remaining biodiversity of the planet.
That's incredible. So they literally are the defenders of just nature and biodiversity.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And there is in the installation of Glasgow, there is a quote that I think it's the quote that we put to finish the installation. It's from Sonia Guajajara. She is president of the National Articulation of Indigenous People in Brazil, which is an NGO created and led by indigenous groups. She's incredible. And it's one of those things that are so powerful. This is one of those things, just going back to how things evolve and things change. I think until a couple of years ago, until now, I think the discourse right now is that how indigenous people are the guardians of nature.
Mm-hmm.
But it's almost utilitarian, isn't it? Like,
right.
Role of them. It's not a role. In an interview that she gave, she says, we are not the guardians of nature.
Right.
We are nature.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Because you always have it, and from a Judeo-Christian tradition, and you always think of like man being elevated or humans being elevated and not part of nature. We are the guardians of it, and that's such a Western way to put it, because
colonizers mindset.
Yeah, but even like in the Bible and things like that, they say that man was that man was there to protect or to rule over nature.
Right.
Where if you have cultures which are more kind of in tune and just recognize their part in an interconnected ecosystem, you're not protecting nature, you're just existing as part of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. I think she says it beautifully. I think that is sort of the discourse that we're going to be seeing becoming, that we hope it will become the public discourse over the next years. That's what it's the kind of mindset and the attitude that we need to make it available, because we are part of nature. We are nature. There is this tree and myself and this river. We are together. We are the same thing. We are the same entity. So I think it's one of those really beautiful, enlightening moments that you see, aha, I think this is something so special, so easily said, and so meaningful. And it's the opposite of what Descartes said, I don't know how many years, that division of science and culture, of man and nature. I think that is the kind of frontier that we need to overcome if we are to survive the climate crisis. I think there is so much there to unpick.
When you look at it that way, it just all seems so incredibly stupid, like you're just stabbing yourself in the foot, you know, like, or just cutting your own arm off, you know, it's just.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that is a kind of sentence that translates so much, talks so much about their cosmology, and that puts into a different perspective everything that we know of how we relate with each other, how we relate to the world. That's why we have to learn, listen, collaborate, work with, support, advocate for, and all of those. Because I think that the key is somewhere there. I don't know. Who am I to know anything? I know nothing. I'm just trying.
I think you do have the key. I mean, I'm a believer now. I've been converted. I do think that there's not going to be a simple answer, but just say, what is your call to action?
My call to action. Oh my God.
Yes.
One thing we can.
I have to end with that, a call to action. So I'm going to say easy call to actions. Come to the film festival.
Yay.
That is a good.
Or you can watch it online if you're not in London.
Yes, exactly. You can watch it online on the ICA website. But I do think that is, find ways of strengthening and supporting Indigenous associations and initiatives. Donate, promote, invest, work with them, consume from them. They invite them to speak, to participate, to decide, to make decisions, to be involved in every single scale that you can, I think, and pay for them as well. It's very important to acknowledge that the value of their insights, of their work. I think one of the things that we have to do in general is to support and give space for the formation of Indigenous leaders, of activists, of journalists, Indigenous politicians, Indigenous anthropologists, and so on. So I think that acknowledging that and supporting them is really important.
The Ignoramus's Guide to Surviving Humanity is available as a podcast on Spotify and Amazon Music.
You can also like and subscribe to our videos on YouTube. And if you want to help us grow, then you can become a patron on Patreon. And that's it, right? I think that's it.
Yeah.